Ah. Oh. Ooh. Oh. Man, does it look good. Okay, hold on. Wait. What? I can't tell. Did we get buffed or nerfed? So what I'm gonna do is probably take the live results and compare it to PTR to see the big difference. So what is this Dyalla and what are we taking a look at? Is this a buff or a nerf? Is this Blizzard's last ditch effort to make things like Cannibal Barrage and Killing Spree come back as awesome talent, something worth using, worth running within PvP and PvE? Yes and no, this is a nerf and a buff. And yes and no, they are changing the talents, but I'm not quite sure in the right direction or in direction a lot of you are thinking. I took a look at the tooltips. Some abilities are saying lower numbers, some abilities are saying higher numbers, but the only real way to test it is against the same trained dummy with exactly the same gear to recreate the settings, and that's exactly what I did. So I tested a lot of abilities. Ambush, don't really see too much of a difference. You have abilities like Between the Eyes that you actually do see some of the difference. You have Saber Slash and Pistol Shot that will function a little bit differently. You have talents that also got a little bit different of results, and I just kind of want to first go over this within all the things that changed. Next one up, Between the Eyes. You build decent amount of damage, sub 1600 on live. On PTR, bam, we got actually a nice chunky buff. Now this is great for both PvE and PvP. I'll talk about it all at the end of the video. Let's go on to the next one. Pistol Shot. Right now Pistol Shot non-crit deals sub 100k damage, which is alright. But on the PTR servers, it deals a little bit over 100k damage. A slight adjustment to the specialization in a long run. Slight. And I think this one in particular was made for PvE and PvP. In PvE, this is good because you can play Ghost Strike or with the Outlaw Rogue bracers for more pistol shot damage with quick draw. But by buffing this ability, it doesn't make too much of a big detriment in terms of damage decrease or increase. Of course, this is going to be great for the bracers, but also not terrible for people with Ghost Strike that don't have the bracers. Then we have other abilities like our trusty run through. This actually looked like on the tooltip that it saw a nerf at first, but when you compare it against the train dummy at PTR with exactly the same settings, you're actually hitting slightly, just ever so slightly harder. Ever so slightly harder non-crits. Ever so slightly, which translates for a little bit more damage when it comes to you actually critting in PvP and PvE. We have stuff like Cannibal Barrage, and did this actually get a change buff? On live service, it deals mediocre damage, and you can see the average and maximum, and this is the low damage of Cannibal Barrage. But when you compare it to the damage on the PTR, you're actually seeing the average and the crits are lower. So in a way, they did kind of nerf Cannibal Barrage. In a way. But what about some of the other abilities, like Killing Spree? This ability definitely should be doing a little bit more damage, and it seems to be doing the same amount on the actual tooltip. But when you take a look at the Scada on live, you get fairly disappointing results, because I wish Killing Spree did a little bit more damage, which would translate into PvP, which would be awesome. And then you take a look at PTR. And after you apply the ability, again, tooltip reads exactly the same thing. And then when you take a look at the Scada, you notice that the numbers are actually a little bit lower. Ever so slightly lower. Just about everywhere. But only ever so slightly. Like the average hit of 90k versus 88k is so different, so small, so minor. One thing that I wanted to test as well is Saber Slash damage. Because in a way that should be affected by the fact that Outlaw Rogues don't have as much of that overall rogue buff that's being played. What is the average damage of a Saber Slashes? And you can see 184 is more or less the average non-crit damage for an Outlaw Rogue on a target with some sort of an armor, as targets have slight amounts of armor. 186, 184, around that ballpark of numbers. When you take a look at the PTR, and you are expecting to see a Saber Slash decrease of damage, but when you are hitting a train dummy, you're seeing it's actually 194-ish, 194-ish on the Saber Slashes. So in a way, it's a buff. So what did Blizzard do? What are these numbers? I'm pretty sure these are PvE changes that inadvertently do help PvP ever so slightly. I'm pretty sure this is to change a little bit of the legendary debacle that we keep having in Legion. Legendaries being a massive influence on how much damage output you do. And to maybe make Outlaw a little bit more friendly for people to even try, even let's say they don't have the specific best in slot gear to really make it shine within PvE. And one of the things that Pistol Shot being buffed a little bit makes the Ghostly Strike build a little bit stronger. Pistol Shot doing more damage just allows it to be a little bit more powerful. The slight damage tuning to run through and between the eyes makes it a little bit easier to play around, not having this flat Outlaw Rogue deal 4% damage buff, because the higher that number goes, the more things I feel like it fucks up in the game. So they're trying to bring that number down to adjust the abilities to be a little bit more effective. Probably it's more for base stats. Let's say maybe it'll be better for scaling in terms of gear. It'll either be more increased with more gear you have, or you'll be doing slightly more damage even at lower gear, so then you can be more competitive as Outlaws, so then you can look for more gearing and more growth, I guess, and can still do something efficiently as a specialization, even though you're not like maxed out as a spec just yet in terms of best slot gear. But I'm mostly thinking this is for the PvE legendary debacle, in terms of people with bracers are definitely doing a lot more damage than people without bracers when it comes to playing Outlaw for PvE. And there's no way of denying it. They simply are doing more damage, because that between the eyes damage and pistol shot damage that you get, the back-to-back between the eyes into massive pistol shot, especially if it's a blunderbuss, you get some insane crits. And I feel like that's kind of what Blizzard is trying to adjust here. In a way, this is also affecting PvP. If you're somebody who PvPs as Outlaw, this isn't going to be some crazy like, wow, all of a sudden we were just one-shotting people. But it's definitely a nice quality of life increase. Pistol shot being able to deal slightly more damage makes it a lot more viable, especially if you're running quick draw as a build. Saber Slash is doing slightly more damage, means our sustained damage is a little bit stronger. Our run through is doing ever so slightly more damage, slightly buffs the burst, but mostly buffs our sustain. And our between the eyes, especially when they crit, doing a little bit more damage. Overall, you're getting very slight buffs, but those slight buffs make up for better sustained damage, slightly better sustained damage. So for somebody who regularly plays Outlaw, you guys are probably going to notice a few things, but there's not a lot of us out there that play Outlaw on the regular. But those of you that do play it, I think you guys will notice this, and you'll be doing slightly more damage. Let's say when you're training a healer and you line up a tricks, and then you're simply just outputting more damage, you're cleaving through a lot more health in a single stun, and that'll be very awesome. I think for Outlaw, the best change would be is to do something in terms of honor talents. Maybe mix them up, take away some that are completely useless that almost nobody runs, and replace something new, like new interesting mechanics to throw in a game. But we'll just have to see if Blizzard does anything in the future. 7.3 is not expected to be a major patch for rogues in general, for PvE or PvP, let alone most classes, except for Ferals, who are in much need of some changes to make their talents less all in or nothing kind of forced to be playing that kind of build. Because right now, Ferals either have this Incarn and some massive burst build, or they have no damage whatsoever. And they either have damage during burst, and then sustain ends up kind of weak. So that's really the only class that's really getting too many amazing changes in terms of just overall overhaul. Rogues are probably not going to get anything seen anytime soon, unless maybe 7.3.5. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys thought about this video in the comments below. If there'll be more updates, I'll make a video on it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.